I'm going to make a Roux sauce. Now this really worries some people, but it's the kind of sauce that could go onto the top of a lasagna or make macaroni cheese. I'm going to make it into a cheesy one, and it's not as difficult as it sounds, so don't worry, it's just a really useful skill to have. I'm going to be adding 500 ml of milk, which is a pint, and then all of the cheese, so make sure your pan is big enough when you begin. So I wouldn't start with a little milk pan, I'd go with a small vegetable saucepan. And we start off by melting 2 tablespoons of margarine or butter, that's about 50 grams. And I think a wooden spoon is the best thing to use because it doesn't bend when you're using it. I know a lot of people don't like them, but for some jobs they're perfect. Now, once this is melted, we're going to add some extra ingredients which will just help to make your cheese taste cheesier and your sauce taste more seasoned. So I'm going to add a chopped clove of garlic, and I want that just to fry in the melted marg or butter just for a few minutes. And in addition to that, I'm going to put in a teaspoon of dry mustard powder. There we are. Just let those cook for a minute or two. Right, so the next thing to do is put in your flour. And I've got 3 level tablespoons, which is 70 grams of plain flour. And this is the roux. This is the thing that people worry about. And you just stir. You've got to cook the flour. So you stir it into the melted margarine or butter. And eventually you finish up with something that becomes a ball that rolls around in the bottom of the saucepan. You can see it's just soaked up all of the margarine. The starch grains are bursting and it's cooking the flour. So that's our roux. Now we go back to the worktop and we start adding milk. Now we start to add our milk a little bit at a time. It's about 2 tablespoons at a time. And watch out in case your jug spills like mine does. And you stir that in really, really thoroughly and it will simply disappear. It'll get absorbed by the flour. And you go round and round and round and it's gone. So we'll put some more in. So another couple of tablespoons. If you put too much in, you will finish up with a lumpy sauce. So this really is one of those situations where you have to just do it slowly. Don't be in a rush. And that's gone, so a bit more. Some people do this by the all-in-one method, and you can do it by putting the flour and the margarine or butter and the milk all in at once. But it often goes lumpy, and then you have to resort to using a whisk to get rid of the lumps. So this is a safer way of doing it. And we just keep going a little at a time until the mixture starts to become almost runny. Now you can see at this stage that it's beginning to get a little bit softer, but I still need to keep going with my 2 tablespoons just until it's thinner than this. That's thin enough. I think we can add the rest, and I've got 250 left in the jug, so I've added half of my milk gradually and the rest I can add all at once and stir it in. And it will become very, very runny, but we're going to go back to the cooker and boil it, and that will thicken it up again. There we are. So that's all of our milk in. Now it's back to the cooker, and when we put it on the cooker, we're going to boil it, and we've got to stir absolutely where the base and the side of the saucepan meets, because that's where sometimes you get patches that burn or that get lumpy because you're just not stirring it. So over we go again. Now we've got to get this to boil, so I've put it onto a bigger ring now so it happens a bit faster. And we must stir the whole time, right into those edges where the side of the pan meets the base. And we keep it moving, and that way we avoid it sticking and burning, and also it helps to prevent any lumps. And you'll know when it's thickening because it's not as splashy, it gets thicker and creamier, and you need to see it boiling around the sides of the saucepan. Now I can feel that this is thickening now because it's not quite so splashy, it's not as thin as it was, it's gradually getting thicker. I'm going to keep going until I know it's boiled, because that way the starch will be cooked and it will be the right thickness. If you discover at the end of all of this it's not as thick as you'd like it to be, dissolve some corn flour in some milk and then add that to it, and that will thicken it up. You might need a dessert spoon of corn flour in 2 dessert spoons of milk, and that will just give it that last extra thickness if this isn't thick enough. Right, now we're nearly there. I've got bubbles at the edges. You can see it's thicker than it was. The little bits are the garlic, not lumps, I promise you. And it's boiling, that means it's cooking the flour. So, that's done. See how it coats the back of the spoon. So now we can add our grated cheese. There we are, I've grated quite a pile of cheddar cheese. Cheddar's got the best flavour for this. Parmesan it doesn't melt in the same way. It's got a strong flavour, but I wouldn't use it for this purpose. So all we do now is simply pile our cheese in. And the only way you'll know if it's strong enough, if the sauce is strong enough, is going to be by tasting it. So we'll get all that in. You can see why you need a big saucepan, can't you? And stir, and the hot milk melts the cheese. I'm going to put those last bits in a second when I've got this stirred in. I'm going to also put in some pepper. I'm not going to put salt in because cheese is salty anyway. And we've got our garlic and our mustard, so we should be okay on the flavour and the seasoning. So give it a stir and then taste it to see if it's to your taste. I think I've probably grated about 200 grams there, but you can put more or less, it depends on your preference. This is not an exact science, it's just the process that's interesting for this. Now if you're going to use it straight away, you can use it for mac and cheese by using a pasta that has a hole through the middle. So spirali or penne or macaroni, and you would cook your macaroni and strain it, put it back in the pan and then pour the cheese sauce over and stir it through. Equally, you could make a pasta bake. So again, macaroni or pasta, whatever type you want, leftover vegetables stirred in, and then the whole thing goes in the oven and you've got pasta bake. Right, let's have a look. Oh, that's nice. So there we are. That's your cheese sauce. Use it whichever way you need to use it. If you don't want to use it till later in the day, take the spoon out, put a lid on, and that stops you getting a skin on the top. And when you're ready to use it, heat it back up again, so it's not too solid and it hasn't set too much. So there we are. I hope you enjoy it. Bye for now.